Most of us have heard the saying, fail to plan and plan to fail. As we navigate through life, there are things that we can anticipate and others that we can't. On today's episode, I want to talk to you about preparing for what's ahead and the things that you expect to come in the near future. Hey, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Brian Wood Leadership Podcast, where we give you the confidence to lead well. I am so excited and honored that you have came back to listen to us as we just launched 2 weeks ago. And man, I just truly want to say thank you. I am blown away by the encouragement and the feedback. And I just pray that we can continue to add value to you and give you the confidence to lead well in whatever environment and context that is. In case you missed it, I want you to go back and check them out. But I just want you to know as we dive in that you are a leader. Leadership is influence, and we all have influence. And so today, episode number 3, preparing for what's ahead, preparing for what is ahead. And this is an interesting topic or discussion or content, because I think that sometimes we get things mixed up with this. And so I want to set 2 things up before we dive in. And the first one is simply that this is not content on goal setting. There is a difference between preparing and planning versus creating goals. Now, it is a fine line and it's rather thin, but I'm going to do a later episode on what it looks like to set goals and how to help you achieve those. But this is not goal setting. This is preparing for what's ahead, meaning we know there are things that are going to happen in life as we transition from season to season that we have the ability to prepare for at least the best that we can. Again, there's always unknowns, there's always uncertainties, there's always things that we did not expect that happen. But there are some really hard truths that as we look ahead into the future, as we look ahead into the next season that we're about to enter in, that we can see and we can begin to prepare and plan for. And so I want to make sure that's clear, that this is not about goal setting and you don't get that confused. Number 2, I want to set this up by sharing a bit of a funny, humorous illustration, example, analogy. At the time of this recording, it is early September, and some of you probably know where I'm about to go with this. But listen, like, I love summer, but I love the fall, and the summer is over. All right, for you guys who want to cling and hold on to the summer as long as you can, you need to let it go because it's over. However, everybody has their own mindset and thoughts on when do we start putting fall decor out, and then it happens again at Thanksgiving and it happens again at Christmas. I know some people who are ready to put their Christmas tree up right now. I'm not that far, just to let you know, but I'm ready for the fall and I love it. So Labor Day weekend, my wife and I were sitting around and we're like, hey, it's time for the fall. Let's go. And we talking to friends and like listening, everybody's posting on Facebook obviously about the fall and leave me alone, I'm not setting up for fall, pumpkin spice go away and all of this. But you know what we did? We went and we bought some decor. We pulled down the rest of our decor from years past in the attic, and we set up for fall. We put pumpkins all over the house, thankful, grateful, blessed, all the little sayings and pumpkin spice, everything. Like it's all over our house, and I love it. So some of y'all get off of me and stop hating. But as I think about this funny illustration and this funny analogy, again, some of you are like, hallelujah, I started putting mine up July 4th, right? And others are like, just go away because summer is not over yet. But here's the deal. Guess what's coming? Fall. Fall is coming, whether you want it to or not. The season is about to change. And again, this is a very shallow analogy. Analogies never really dive and penetrate in totality, but at least it gets our minds going. And so we know that fall is coming, and so therefore we prepared for it. I put stuff all in my house to prepare for the fall. Now, granted, there's not really preparation that you need for the actual season of fall other than temperatures changing and stuff like that. But I'm like, I'm going to get ready. I'm going to do the things that I would do when fall gets here. I hope you understand where I'm going with this. if we want to prepare for what's ahead, if we want to look into the future, we've got to start doing things now that will be that will lend itself to being ready when that season gets here. And so that leads me to my first point. I have three today. That's kind of my go-to. But here's point number one, if you want to write this down. As you prepare for what's ahead, number one is identify what's ahead. You got to identify what's ahead. To continue in humor in our illustration, my wife and I, we identified that the fall is what's ahead. That's what's coming, the season. And so we prepared for it. We started setting things up. Now, some more real and weighty examples, more serious examples, which, I don't know, that one seems pretty serious to me. As a leader, let's say you are about to head into a busy season. You know that the season is changing. You know that you come out of summer, things have been kind of a little bit laid back, a little maybe disorganized, if you want to say that, not to a fault or to a weakness, but like, things have been a little more free-flowing over the summer, and you know the fall is about to be busy, and you know it's coming. You got to identify and begin to prepare for that season. Let's say as an organizational leader, we're in the fourth quarter now, right? Guess what happens for most people? Some people operate on a fiscal year, so they've been running things a little bit sooner, but for a lot of people who run a calendar year, like, it's budget time, it's finances time, it's reconciliation time. Like, we got to start preparing and getting all of these things, budgets assessed and prepped for the following year. And so I don't want to make this more than what it is, or try to dive into this more than it needs to be talked about or discussed, because it's rather simple. And maybe that's what you're thinking right now, like, this is kind of trivial, this is kind of simple. But if we would take the time to actually just step back for a moment and think about, okay, what are the things that are coming in the weeks, months ahead that I absolutely know are going to happen unless I leave this earth? Like, I'm going to prepare for that. I'm going to identify that. And again, I know some of you may be listening and are like, dude, whatever. Like, but here's the hard truth. You and I and the rest of the world, we live such fast-paced, busy lives with no margin, no space, no room to breathe, and we're literally living from day to day to day. And some of you are pushing back and you're like, yeah, because you don't understand my life and what I'm going through. I'm not trying to go into that. But what I want you to hear and what I want you to understand is that we've got to identify what's coming if we want to prepare for what's ahead. Because it does several things, and I'm not going to spend a ton of time here, but number one, you identify it, you know what's coming. Number two, when you get to that season that you know is coming, we already discussed, and we all know that there are going to be things that happen in that season that we didn't think were coming, that were unexpected. Well, guess what happens when you're already prepared for the expected? You have a little bit more room and a little bit more margin, a little bit more flexibility to adapt to the unexpected things, right? Like, does that make sense? Like if we've already prepared and done the work for the things we know are coming, and we're not scrambling and waiting until that season gets here for us to begin preparing, because oftentimes we do that. We wait until the season gets here and we're like, okay, what do I got to do now? And we're already behind. We're already 2 steps behind. Like, what would our lives look like, especially as a leader, if you began to step back and look ahead and prepare for what is ahead? Write this down if you're taking notes. It's hard to prepare for what you can't identify. It's hard to prepare for what you can't identify. And again, I know some of you, if you wanted to rip that apart, you could. I'm not about like tweetable quotes. I just think of these simple statements that make sense, that help us. We kind of cling to that, and it carries on with us in our minds, and we say it and we think about that as we are moving ahead. And I hope that little statement will challenge you to look ahead. Again, I understand we can't identify everything, nor can we prepare for everything. But in the context of what we're talking about here, as you think about what is ahead that I know is coming, it's hard to prepare for that if you don't identify what is ahead. And so, identify what's ahead. Number 2 is identify what remains. identify what remains. Here's what I mean by that. After you identify what is ahead, the things that you know are coming, identify the things that remain that are going to stay from one season to the next. The things that you're doing right now in this season. As you identify the season that's coming, think about the things that you know you are doing right now that you are going to continue to do in that preparation for that future season. Maybe it's things that you know are going to help you in that next season. It's things that you're doing now that are going to add value to you in that next season. It's things that you know are going to be beneficial for you that you're already doing that you're going to continue to do in that next season. And so I'll give you two examples since some of y'all are hating on me for running summer off, but I'm going to give one personal and one organizational, and hopefully you can understand and connect some of the dots in your life in the season that you're in now versus the season that you're about to head into. Let's talk about personal first. We just came out of summer, right? Summer, everything's crazy, chaotic. It's all over the place. At least for my family, there's very little structure. We're just like, all right, where are we going today? What are we doing? Okay, and this and that. And so as we've transitioned to kids back in school, as well as all three of our kids at home who are playing different sports, like we know that we are headed into a busy season. We're in it right now at the time of this recording. And so as I think about what are the things that I was doing through the summer, through a very, very different season, that I need to continue doing in this season of fall that we are in right now? And here are some of them. And again, they may sound simple, but they're so important. The first one is I got to understand and recognize that just like the summer, guess what? My wife and I, we still have work responsibilities. We still have jobs to go to. We still have things that we have to do. And again, that sounds so like, just really, Brian? Like, you got to work. But how often do we not factor in the things that we know we're going to have to do looking ahead to the next season? And so what I have to understand is, okay, I'm going into a busy season, but I still got a job. I still have responsibilities as an adult that I have to carry out. Another one that we always strive to have, and I'm not perfect at it, but we had to have it during summer because, again, everything was chaotic in a different way, and we also got to have it in this season because it's chaotic in a really busy and lots of things going on at once type of way. Is clear communication with my wife. We've got to have clear communication. She's working, I'm working. Who's getting kids? Who's going to cheerleading? Who's going to the game? Like, we've got to communicate. So that thing I've had to identify, it was there in this past season. It's got to remain in this upcoming season. Another one which goes along with that is discussing schedules. Hey, we got to sit down on Sunday and figure out what's your week look like. What's my week look like? What did the kids' week look like? And let's keep that. It has to happen. We have to continue. We have to allow that thing to remain. And then the last one in this one is, and there's probably more, I'm just giving you a few, but I have to, the summer is for us is a time of really investing into our kids and just having a lot of fun. And now that we're entering into a busy season where they're all at different places and spaces and our schedules are full, I have to remain investing into my kids and having family fun. Like, we want to keep that. And so those are the things that I've identified from one season to the next as I prepared for what's ahead, that I have to remain doing and continue doing those things. I'll give you one more from an organizational perspective, and then we'll move on to 3 and we'll be done. And this one is from my church that I pastor. If you're new here, I'm a pastor of a church here in Virginia. And in 2021, in January, we launched online. So we didn't have a building. We launched online. We met in homes on Sunday morning. We had online service, and we worshiped together in kind of small group setting. 2022, we got a building and we launched in this building. So massive transition. We went from online to in person, and a lot of places, not just churches, but obviously the last couple of years have had to make that transition. And so we had to look at, okay, what are the things that we're doing in our online, season that need to remain and continue in our in-person season? And those were things like connection. It was small, and people were meeting together and having lunch and doing church in a home. Like, there was a lot of connection there. Those are what we call city homes. We got to make sure that people aren't just coming and sitting in a building on Sunday morning and consuming a service. Not that that's bad in itself, but that they are still connected to other people doing life together. We have to make sure we continue the relationship building that was taking place remains into this new season. And then obviously we're going to teach His Word, just like we did online and just like we did in person. And so now we're 9 months into this thing, and we look back, and I realize that some things that needed to remain, we did really good at, and other things we didn't do so good at. And so you identify what remains as you identify what's ahead, and you continue those into the next season, at least those that you can identify and understand. Write this down. Changing seasons doesn't mean changing everything. Changing seasons doesn't mean changing everything. Just because you're at a new place, a new job, a new school, a new whatever, it doesn't mean that everything that you did in the past has to change. So identify those things you need to continue. Identify what remains. And number 3, identify what goes. Identify what goes. You got to figure out, what are the things that I'm doing in this season as I've identified the season that's coming, preparing for what's ahead. I've identified the things that I need to continue doing, the things that need to remain. What do I need to stop doing? Because listen, what works now may not work tomorrow. What works now may not work tomorrow. And as you prepare for a new season, you've got to understand, what are the things that I'm doing now that I've got to get rid of because they're not going to add value. They're not going to help me. They're not going to give me confidence. They're not going to allow me to be the best leader that I can in all aspects, because it's just wasted space. I'm burning energy and time and resources on doing things that aren't as effective as what they used to be because of this new season. And so that one is pretty self-explanatory. I don't have an example to give you for that one, because it's rather simple to identify but hard to execute. Because here's the deal: there's familiarity there, there's comfort there, because we've done something that we know has worked in one season. And so we want to cling to that and move into the next season. But I'm going to tell you right now, no matter what it is, whether it's you're an organizational leader or even parenting, right? Like, golly, I got a 14-year-old right now. Nobody prepared me for that. And I promise you, what worked at 12 isn't working at 14 anymore. So you identify and then you execute. So like the difference between being a good leader and a great leader, there are several characteristics, but one of those is the aspect of adapting and flexibility, right? Like I'll use this as an example. I said I wasn't going to give you one, and then I'll wrap it up. And I'm not criticizing any churches at all. We could use any type of organization, but because I'm so familiar with churches, if you look at COVID and what it did, and I hate to even say the C word on here, but like, a lot of organizations, churches, restaurants, whatever, they're not doing well anymore because they refuse to adapt in a totally different season. And part of that adaptability is not only identifying what are the things we're going to continue to do, but what are the things we're going to stop doing. And I think we're really good at identifying the ones we want to continue because, again, they're comfortable to us. We know they've worked, and so we cling to them and we keep doing them that way. But we're not so good at letting go of things, whether it's because of an emotional connection or whatever it may be, fear of what you should do or not, the uncertainty of trying something new. But listen, if you want to lead well, and you are preparing for the season ahead, you have got to identify what it is that you need to stop doing. And I will say it's never too late, but the importance of all of this as we wrap this up is that we cannot wait for the next season to be upon us to start adapting, shifting, assessing, and identifying. Again, we're going to be behind. And if you want to have the confidence to lead well, think about what is coming, the things you know are coming. Identify that. Identify what remains and identify what needs to go. And I believe that you will have better success as you enter into a new season. And so I'm praying over each of you as we enter into a new season. I think all of us are, just by natural, organic aspects of the fall, and not just from a weather perspective, but summer's over and there's a natural transition there. And so maybe you have some other transitions in your life. Identify what's coming, identify what remains, and identify what needs to go. Hey, I'm so thankful that you made it this far. I would love for you to share this podcast. Leave us a review. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe, leave a comment, share, whatever it is, man. If it adds value to your life, I believe that it'll add value to somebody else's. And so it will mean so much to me. We'll see you in 2 weeks, and I hope you have a great day. See you.